This is the Pixel 3 XL, and when it was released last year, it's pretty clear that Google were trying to push the boundaries of what their flagship devices are capable of. Trying to find the perfect mixture of features and looks, Google took a step into previously unseen territory, for better or for worse. But 1 year later, through the release of the OnePlus 7T series and the iPhone 11s, how does this device hold up? To me, the Pixel 3 XL is an accumulation of everything that makes a Google phone great, mixed with some of the worst decisions they've ever made. You have top-of-the-line hardware, the latest and greatest Android versions, and an impeccable camera, all inside a build that some would say is a notch above the rest. The build of this device is beautiful. It's everything I loved about the Pixel 2 XL with its curved glass edges that mold perfectly to the frame, but this time it's all glass and aluminium, and I think it looks a whole lot more premium for it. The rear etched accent is a clever take on the two-tone design from previous generations, and it's one thing that I think brings a really refreshing feel to this phone, without compromising the distinctive pixel looks that you would expect from such a minimal design. And in use, this etched pattern feels a lot nicer than just regular shiny old glass. Even some 2019 phones don't feel quite as good as the textured surface, but as you probably heard during the first few weeks, it's pretty easy to mark the surface with keys or coins, and it's also really difficult to clean those marks off. Now, I haven't personally experienced any markings, but I'm saying it because it is a big deal breaker if you buy a device used. Weight is distributed evenly through the top and bottom of the device, and those curved edges give an illusion of a device that's thinner, which feels great. Even with that solid metal frame, Squeeze for Assistant is still here on this phone, and it's actually one of my favourite mini features. I find myself using Google Assistant pretty often using the Squeeze. It's one of those little details that adds to the convenience factor of this phone. Like most phones that have been released within the past year, it's comfortable to use and feels great in the hand. I personally use one of Google's fabric cases to protect this phone, which gives it more of a tailored, stylish look, and it also prevents me from breaking the phone because I am really clumsy. And speaking of tailored fits, Mogul News publishes handpicked stories from some of the world's largest publishers, including The Economist, The Times, Bloomberg, and more. It covers largely tech, business, and political news, and is my new go-to for news reading. Mogul News is a new type of news platform, giving you a daily briefing that covers the most important headlines, collections that are deep dives into certain topics, and my personal favourite, perspectives that are groups of articles offering opposing viewpoints on particular topics. Available for Android and iOS, Mogul News is my new favourite news platform. Check out the link below to make it yours too. Around the front, things are a little bit less sleek. That notch paired with the chin is a combo that doesn't look anywhere near as good as phones that we've seen released in 2019, but like most notches, you'll get used to it with use, though that doesn't excuse how ugly it looks. Something I didn't anticipate with this notch is the increased real estate for the status icons and the notification drawer. A little more space up there actually looks a whole lot nicer than I thought it would, but as much as I like the extra room, I would still rather a smaller notch. With a 6.3 inch 18.5:9 display, things are a little bit unusual around here. But the display itself is one of the best parts of this phone. P-OLED is truly great for just about any kind of use, and with an excellent brightness range, which is something a lot of Android phones leave out, I find it to be an excellent display all around. The stereo speakers housed within the notch and the chin sound absolutely amazing. There's no noticeable distortion, and the clarity of both the treble and the bass makes these speakers great for just about every type of content consumption. Now, I know it's just a little thing, but one of my favourite features of the Pixel 2 was the subtle little charging sound that you had whenever you plugged the phone into the wall. That is still here with Android 10, and I'm really happy to see it because it sounds a whole lot better on these good speakers. What's more is that paired with this phone's excellent haptics, it gives it a more cohesive feel between the hardware and the software. The charging reaction and many other features are now linked in a really solid way. There's no echo or hollow feeling. The only thing holding it back here is the lack of haptic integration by Android developers other than Google. My favourite implementations are when scrubbing through text and within the camera app, but I'd still love to see more third-party developers making use of the haptics. Android 10 makes major improvements and fixes in areas where Android up until now has felt confused. Dark mode system-wide is finally here, which is one of my favourite parts of Android 10. With such a good AMOLED panel, it's hard to argue against using it, and being able to change your accent colour is a great addition that adds a OnePlus level of customization to stock Android. Version 10 adds the convenience factor that Android has been missing for years, the most noticeable of which being the reorganisation of the volume menus, which now appear as a pop-up. This and other little fixes have added a generally more cohesive feel system-wide. Android is becoming better and better on this device in 2019, and it feels amazing to use. And as we've seen with Google's previous generations, we know that software support for this device will go to Android 11 or even beyond. Security is another area Google have taken bold steps in. When you install a new app, the control you have over when they see your location is now significantly improved. You'll get a notification each time an app pings your location, along with options to block access unless you're active on the app, and this is a really great addition. But what really makes stock Android and makes this device so good for me is the integration of animations and wallpapers. And on this device with Android 10, it beats some 2019 phones in this area. Being built by Google, for Google, the live wallpapers are integrated so exceptionally smoothly with the always-on display, which makes some really pleasing animations and also fixes the dilemma of how to transition from the lock screen to the always-on display. The features that this phone gave us, like flip to snooze and night sight, are still some of the best little additions this device has to offer, but they're also what makes the experience on this phone so great even 1 year on, and it's something I miss whenever I switch to another device. It's the convenience factor that Google have added that really sells stock Android to me. It might not sound like much, but if you actually use this phone for a few weeks and then switch to something like the Razr Phone 2, like I did, you will really start to miss those features. Up until the iPhone 11, the rear camera had been unchallenged by pretty much any device for its consistency of getting a brilliant shot every time you use it. Inside this phone is a bang average 12 megapixel sensor, but it's Google software that really works the magic here. The capabilities of photography with this device are incredible. A Pixel is the only device that I've used that consistently takes an impressive photo no matter the lighting conditions. There's a perfect balance of vibrancy and saturation without any editing, and it doesn't fail to disappoint with each shot. Here's a few examples of photos that I've taken in the regular camera mode with no editing applied. In portrait mode, things get seriously impressive. The portrait modes on both the rear and front cameras are absolutely amazing, but the thing that's missing is a live preview in the viewfinder box. And I understand why there isn't one, being a single sensor, all the processing is obviously done afterwards, but that is an area where this device will start to fall down as you go into the coming months. The problem here is that it'll most likely not perform as well long term for portrait photos. Compared to the iPhone 11, which can record depth data from its two cameras, this device will be limited by software that can only use the single camera. So the iPhone 11 will have much more long-term support for improvement, where the Pixel may start to fall behind. But that being said, Google's ability to create these kind of portrait photos with a single sensor really shows how it is a game of software and not hardware these days. Night sight was a game-changing feature on this phone, and it's only improved with time. It has been said that the iPhone 11 does a better job, and I suppose you could argue that because the images are brighter and they do look a bit more vibrant, but personally I find the Pixel to be more natural in the comparisons that I've seen. The front cameras are also amazing. Normal and wide, the difference between focal lengths isn't vast, but it's the only thing that can excuse that behemoth of a notch. With front portrait modes on both cameras and video options for both, it creates a seriously powerful setup at the front. It's a well-known fact that the video options that you have are nowhere near as powerful as the photo options, and it is a little bit disappointing. Rear video is good, but it's not quite as good as other devices in terms of choice for resolution or frame rate. You're limited to 4K 30 for the rear camera, which is pretty restricted compared to phones from 2019. Front video is also good enough, and the transition from the normal to the ultra-wide lens is pretty smooth, but it's only 1080p and the stabilization is not the best. In reality, I doubt the front camera gets used all that often for video, but when you need it, it may be a little bit lackluster. The performance on this phone is a little bit of a mixture. With its Snapdragon 845, it sounds like it can handle everything, but once you see it has 4GB of RAM, some of the issues that you may face will start to make sense. The biggest problems I've had are the lag on the lock screen with a frame rate that looks to be like lower than 20 frames a second at times. This could be a separate issue with Android 10 because I saw it a lot less with Android 9. And just like last year when people saw these kind of issues with the Pixel 2 XL, it kind of adds up that we're seeing these issues now. The second and most irritating issue is the RAM management Google have implemented. Just like on the Pixel 2 XL, RAM management is pretty poor. If you're playing music with the screen off, as I tend to do, the music will just stop randomly as the app gets stopped in the background. And let me tell you, that is the most irritating thing that this device has ever done. And it's the same for multitasking. When you switch back to an app that you haven't opened in a few minutes, it'll reopen as a new task, losing where you left off. This is the biggest issue that I have with this phone right now. It's really not great to see it on a device that's only 12 months old, and I wish someone could just tell Google to fix the one issue that plagues every Pixel phone we've seen so far. It's a little bit disappointing that Google have let this phone slip, but that's not saying that it's going to remain like this forever. I did encounter issues with my Pixel 2 XL last year after I made my video. It was just about the time of the 3 XL's release, but as soon as December hit, I had a couple of updates for the Pixel 2 XL, and that made it a whole lot faster. So I'm putting my trust in the fact that these issues are purely just teething issues with Android 10, and I really hope that they get fixed because they're ruining what is otherwise a near-perfect device. Something kind of weird that I've noticed is that this phone can last a ridiculously long time on 1% battery, and I can only assume that this is an intentional way of keeping your device alive at times when you may really need it, but as I've noticed this pattern, you can probably tell that I'm not having the best time with this phone's battery life. I'll get an average amount of screen on time, and it can get me through the day easily enough, but it's just not groundbreaking today, just like it wasn't groundbreaking when it was released. In 2019, this is possibly still one of the best Android phones you can buy. With such a brilliant build, what is in my opinion the best version of Android and the best Android camera out there, it's pretty easy to recommend this phone to anyone in 2019. But at the same time, the lagging and the RAM issues that I've experienced take away from what is otherwise one seriously amazing phone. They're not deal breakers for me, as I'm probably a little bit more patient than other people and I can rely on Google to push out some updates, but they're definitely things worth considering if you're in the market for this phone right now. You can buy a Pixel 3 XL for just about £350 right now, and what you get for that price in terms of camera reliability, features and software support is quite frankly unmatched by any other device. As Google have shown us with their previous generations, this device can only get better from here. With every project that I make, I try and better myself in every way, and this time it's been with my A-roll set. So this is actually the second time I've shot the A-roll. The first time I set it up last night, and I realised that my face was out of focus. I only really tend to review the things that I love, and that's why making a video like this on a device that I've really just clicked with, that's really what gives me my inspiration to create these videos. So I'm going to be adding these little bits of behind the scenes into every new project that I create. Today we're actually using a new A-roll lens, which is the Voigtlander 25mm f/0.95. If you guys want to see a little bit more behind the scenes in every video, please let me know down in the comments below. I just want to add a bit more of a personal feel to these videos and actually show you guys how they're done, because I get a lot of questions asking how I created this shot or how I edited this. There's just certain videos that I love to create because you really just click with the creative process, you click with the music that you found. Most importantly, I actually love the thing that I'm reviewing, which is the biggest motivation to actually create an awesome video for it.